I'm Annika. I founded Two Forks with my colleague Annika, and we help food, drink, and hospitality businesses really connect with their customers and take them on a deliberate journey from the first visit to becoming a return customer and eventually fans and ambassadors of your brand, which is what you want, really. We started out as journalists. Both Anna and I worked at Square Meal and had various columns for Men's Health, Restaurant Magazine, Time Out, Evening Standard. And then we retrained as, ooh, what's this? It's a nice picture of Anna and I at a Christmas event many years ago, just to prove that we knew each other when we were little. And we retrained as copywriters, and we work almost exclusively within hospitality for some very lovely brands, including Airship and Toggle. So thank you very much for having me here today. Today, I'm going to share why I'm quite possibly the world-leading authority on hospitality Christmas content planning. I'm going to share my bulletproof ideas for idea generation, and also the prompts that will help feed your own seasonal content calendar forever. So starting with that really bold claim, and also I thought I'd mention all I want for Christmas myself this year is to please take me back to the 90s. It was so much fun. Do you remember All Bar One when it was new and exciting and we had large glasses of wine for the first time? Had a lot of those. Spent a lot of nights in Pune nightclubs drinking so much vodka Red Bull that I still get shivers thinking about the vodka Red Bull hangover. Then we would maybe go to a gig. We would always eventually end up at somebody's house, go through their CD collection. There was great grunge music. I was hoping Kieran would be here to support me on that one. Not sure there are many grunge rockers in here today. But then inevitably, we would end up singing Alanis Morissette in the kitchen till 3 in the morning. For special occasions, we would go to the Collection in South Kensington, which was a very exciting bar and restaurant where you had to master this catwalk on the way in, which was very nerve-wracking, and it was really, really hard to get tables there, but my mate Martin worked behind the bar, so he always smuggled us in, which was great. Ooh. But best of all is that all of our work as journalists back then was done with an dodgy office phone like this. There was no email, there were no daily web deadlines. We had a guidebook. We wrote the Square Meal Guide once a year. We had 3 magazines, and that's all we had to do. So I spent my days going to wonderful gastropubs like the Eagle in Farringdon or the Westbourne in Westbourne Park. Gordon Ramsay was still a chef at the time. He cooked in this lovely restaurant called Aubergine where the door handles were shaped like aubergines. And I had a very close near-death experience when, as it was one of my very first review meals when I'd started at Square Meal. I went to Aubergine. I ate my first broad bean. We didn't have those in Sweden growing up. And I started choking on a broad bean, and I didn't know what to do. I was so embarrassed, coughing in the middle of this really fancy restaurant. I ran downstairs and Heimlicked myself on the sink in the ladies' loo. And I'm just really glad, like the Evening Standard headlines were flashing in front of my eyes. Food critic dies in Gordon Ramsay restaurant. Luckily, that didn't happen. I lived to see another meal. And that meal could perhaps have been one of the foie gras tasting menus that I enjoyed at a restaurant called Club Gascon, where every single dish had foie gras in it. And I took my husband there for a tasting menu, and he had so much foie gras that he had nightmares that night that Lara Croft, or his mum was Lara Croft, and she was running around shooting all of his friends. Don't eat too much foie gras. And then our blissful existence was disrupted by the launch of Square Meal Christmas Parties magazine, which meant that we had to produce over 100 pages of Christmas editorial every single year. And that's why I think that I'm quite possibly the most qualified person in the world to talk about how to generate fresh ideas over and over and over again. We had to not just put together a package that you guys might be doing, but we had to think about filling an entire magazine, writing about the same thing, usually the same venues, because we had the same advertisers year on year, and we still managed to do that. So I'll be sharing that process with you today. And my number one tip is to be more editorial. So try and organize your brainstorm sessions like an editorial team would. So 3 things that I would never recommend anyone to do alone is apply sunscreen to that really middle part of your back that nobody can reach. Play badminton is no fun without a buddy. And I would definitely not publish over 100 pieces of Christmas content without some help. So even if you don't have a full team, even Batman needed Robin. So find a person within your team or maybe from another team in your venues that you can brainstorm with, that you can research with, and who can help you edit what you've written. Because if we lock ourselves away and write these things by ourselves, we're never quite sure how it's going to land. So it's great to just have another person to help us come up with ideas. Also, you can have so much more fun and come up with much better content. So recruit a buddy. Start with an editorial meeting. Christmas in July is a concept that's known because that's when journalists start looking at Christmas content. So that's when PRs will host events to show the journalists what's going to be happening at Christmas. So given that if you want to get anything into the press, you need that ready for July, your editorial meeting should be no later than June in a year. And if you were listening to Rachel, you should actually go even earlier. I would argue that there's no better time to plan Christmas than at Christmas, because if you're planning next year's stuff now, you can actually maybe shoot some of the images that you need. You can think ahead, what am I going to be sharing at this time next year? You can take notes on what's working and what's not working. I would absolutely, even if you can't get your brainstorming session booked in as early as January, at the very least do a debrief in January so that you can just look at the season that you've just had, think about what you've learned from that. And also, if you've already got your content ready for next year, you can give it a bit of an edit then. So first on the agenda for your editorial meeting are the ideas. I'll show you more of that process later, but just think about going as deep as you possibly can into what you know about the occasion and your customers. I'm going to skip this over for now. Next, you really want to think about pictures, because it's very, very hard to sell anything without images. And quite often, when we're clutching at straws and trying to put together Christmas content in the summer, you're thinking, oh shit, where am I going to shoot anything with snow or tinsel or anything in the background? So you might want to think outside of the box with that one. I laugh at this now because this feels so basic, but one of the most popular features that we ever did in Square Meal Christmas Magazine was this shoot that I pulled together where I invited the top big sort of London event organizers to do a preview of what their Christmas parties were going to look like. And this was actually the one that pulled out most of the stops because they brought in this juggler to have a bit of interest. But literally, it was a picture of your very typical golden banqueting chairs with the setup and the table decoration in the middle. And the organizers were going mental for this because they can picture their party. So if you give them images that help them picture their event in your venue, you're going to be much more likely to close that business. If you can't get photos, think about using sketches in a creative way. One year, I wanted to do a feature about Christmas canapes, and we didn't have the budget to shoot it. So I don't know if you're aware, but a lot of top chefs will draw drawings like this when they're recipe innovating. So I thought, how about we invite some top chefs to share their drawings of the Christmas canapes? And again, that feature went down really well with the readers, who just loved some kind of illustration and some idea of what they might be eating at their Christmas party. Even when we didn't have pictures. Illustrations work really well. They're not very expensive to have done. You can, in your cities or town, wherever you live, you can Google local illustrators. Typically, for under 100 quid, you could get something quite fun made that is, specific to your venue, and you can do some really fun stuff for images that way. Then number 2 on the agenda is go out and do some stuff. It's really, really hard to write about experiences that you haven't had in an exciting way. At Casual Dining last week, I can't remember who, one of the speakers was saying they're having this issue now when they're training kids in sort of 18 to 9-year-olds who should have had a lot of bar and restaurant experiences, but when they were of the age to start going out, they were in lockdown. So you're trying to train someone to give hospitality naturally when they've never actually experienced it themselves. And the same goes for Christmas parties. How many people in here have written something about Christmas parties about an event that they haven't actually been to, or food that they haven't tasted, or packages that they've never actually test-driven in the past? So going out and doing some stuff is really important. One of my PR friends, Andrew from Triggerfish Communications, came up with this brilliant idea called Challenge Annika, because you got to work your name. He even had the jumpsuit made, and for every issue of the magazine, he would challenge me to do stupid things like trapeze flying, playing live on stage under the bridge at Stamford Bridge, paintballing, cycling in the velodrome in Manchester. That was terrifying and very exhilarating. Skippering a yacht and pouring a bottle of champagne exactly into 5 glasses so they all leveled up, no dripping. It was a lot of fun, but also it made my writing better because I was writing about things that I had experienced. So if you're thinking about putting together, particularly if you're doing packages or something partnering with another business, a lot of corporates want a full experience for their Christmas. They might want to have a meeting in the morning, an activity in the afternoon, a party in the evening. If you look around you for partners to help you provide that full service, you can own the entire day. So go out and test drive some of this stuff. So at Christmas, as an editorial team, we would go out and test drive a whole bunch of parties so that we could write about them in a more interesting way. So one year, that was a feature, we called it Naughty or Nice, and it was basically having a low alcohol party versus a sort of splash out party. So in the first spread, we did low alcohol activities like ice skating, followed by afternoon tea, and then going to a show or a cinema visit. And then we compared it with a completely debaucherous tits out night with cocktails and dancing till 5 a.m. And we could never have put together this kind of feature with pictures, with insights, with tips of all the little things you need to think about if we hadn't gone out and drunk all the tea and then drunk all of the cocktails and reported on it. If you don't have time, I would very much try and urge you to take the time to go out and experience some things, particularly in your own venues. It's so rare that we get an opportunity to be guests and really experience our venues firsthand. So do take the time, but if you don't have the time, if you're rushing, at the very least, do some interviews. Hospitality businesses are full of people who love to share. They have lots of stories. You can tap into the knowledge of your team. So if you're selling a Christmas party package with cocktails, go and speak to whoever behind the bar came up with that cocktail. Where did the inspiration come from? Why have they put this together for this time of year? I'm sure there's a story, and whatever you put together in your packages will be more interesting because you know where that came from. And also, you yourselves know more than you think. So a lot of the time when we are talking about things that we experience over and over again, so we're hosting hundreds and hundreds of Christmas parties, all of the things that we know about that can be gold to your customers. So again, a really popular feature in our magazine, which we did almost every year in some shape or form, was this what to do when checklist. Basically taking bookers through all of the little things that they need to think about, down to like when do you prepare the name tags for the dinners and all of that kind of stuff. But you can also put together really useful content that makes your booker feel like a pro in front of whoever they're working for. Christmas parties are one of those events where even companies who don't really do events they will have a Christmas party. And so there are lots of inexperienced bookers who have no idea how to pull an event together. And if you can be that helpful person that puts together the checklist that not only has details about your venue and what they're going to do, but they help them, your information helps them look good by giving them all the other stuff, like what to do the day after. Are you going to treat everyone to some kind of hangover cure? What kind of goodie bags can you put together that help people have a better journey home? All of that kind of stuff will help them look good in front of their teams, and they will credit you with making them look good. So it's one of those things that they will come back to. Another way that you could perhaps, if you have lots of different packages and you want to present them in a different way, having some kind of quiz illustration where sort of, oh, which Revolution package are you? And you can follow all these little arrows. People like information that's presented in creative ways, so we can lure them in by that. You can also make something out of nothing. We made a full-page feature all about party games you can do with random things from your purse, like your swan filters and your wristlers and all of that kind of stuff. Just a bit of fun. We got a photo booth in, and we reviewed various hats that you could wear to Christmas parties. You could do really silly things, and if you can put a smile on people's faces, they will remember you, and it will be more creative than whatever anyone else has done. And then the last step in the process is to channel Homer and make a bucket list. So when I idea generate, I get 3 buckets out. Props. So your first bucket is your marketplace. So it's your customers and all the other players in the market. So anyone else who competes for your customers' attention at this time. Bucket 2 is the thing. So it could be Christmas, it could be your Black Friday campaigns, it could be Mother's Day, whatever your idea brainstorming for, you've got a bucket for that. And then the final bucket is you and your USPs. So it could be anything related to your business, not necessarily just the package that you want to be selling at this particular time, but really digging deep and thinking about your products and your team. So basically what we do at our editorial meetings is we place these 3 buckets on the table in front of us. I get a nice block of paper notes, and then we just brainstorm. We set a timer, usually 2 minutes per category, see how many we get. Maybe we do another 2 minutes, but we're basically brainstorming into those 3 buckets. So bucket 1 is really your playing field. So you want to think about what's true about your customers at this occasion or this time of year. Are there any particular wants and needs and fears, frustrations, that they might have around Christmas specifically? So you might want to be checking your reviews from last year, ask your front of house teams or your reservations teams or your sales teams, what were those frequently asked questions that came up over and over again? Maybe we can use those in our marketing for next year. You want to talk to all of those in-house teams and gather that data. Also think about what else is going on. Like Rachel mentioned, World Cup is happening this year, so that's going to be influencing who else is fighting for people's attention at this time of year. So you basically just take out your pad and you brainstorm things. And some of those things can be very, very basic. So like when you're thinking about your customers, you want to be thinking about, like, how do they feel at Christmas? They might feel joyful, they might feel in the mood to indulge, which are all these things that we want them to feel, and that's probably true, but they're also going to be feeling perhaps overwhelmed. Perhaps they're going to 6 or 7 Christmas parties. Perhaps they're having to organize something that they're not used to be organizing. Maybe they're the organizer in the family who has lots of stuff to do at home around this time. Maybe they're stressed, they're trying to get their Christmas shopping. There's all of these things. So like write down all of the things that you think people feel around this holiday. Then bucket 2 is the name of the game. Not the ABBA song, but the name of the thing that you're thinking about. So you can set yourself a timer to think about universal truths around Christmas. So what is Christmas? What happens? And you just basically write down everything that comes to mind when you think about Christmas. And try to really seek out those universal truths. If you want inspiration, watch classic comedians like Jerry Seinfeld, for example. Like, he will come up with one-liners like, "There's no such thing as family fun for everyone." You know, those kind of things that we nod along to and we think, yeah, he knows what he's talking about because he's been there. So if we can think about those things that we can say about Christmas that people who have booked a party will know and nod along to, and if they feel that connection with you, that they're coming from the same place and they know the same things that you do, they're more likely to choose you over someone else. And also think about when you come up with those sort of universal truths, think about what's the opposite of those truths. Like how can we brainstorm ideas that are completely the opposite of what we, if it's a positive thing, what we don't want people to feel, or if it's a negative thing, that can we paint a sort of picture of the ideal scenario? And then the final bucket, which is your own USPs, these are really your strongest players and how you're going to be selling your packages. So as I said before, you want to be setting aside your specific Christmas package for the moment and just brainstorm around what is it that people love about you, about your product, about your people, about your place in the world. Like think about when people go to your venues, what do they talk about? Why would they tattoo the logo of your brand onto their bodies? Like, what is it that they absolutely love? Write down all of those things that stand out, whether they have anything to do with Christmas or not, because once we've got all of those ideas together, we're going to be using prompts to try and take all of these truths about you and about them and about the event and put them all into one nice package that's all about Christmas. But for the moment, just focus on what are those things that really make you stand out and dig really deep, like Yoda said. You want to be asking yourself, okay, I know that this one thing is a benefit for customers when they come to us, but what's the benefit of that benefit? Keep drilling down until you find out what is it, what's the nub of what they really love about us. So that's the third part of the brainstorm. And then it really is as easy as filling your buckets and then filtering all of that information that you've put into the buckets. And also, the more people you can get involved in the bucket brainstorm, the better, because everyone will have a different perspective. So you can just take all of these out and then use prompts to try and find the gold inside all of this information that you've got. And yes, I do have these prompts for you. So that's my Christmas gift to you all, is that you're never ever going to run out of ideas again. Also, I would say there's no pressure. You can play around with this. Most Christmas offers are so shit that you only have to be a little bit good to really stand out. And I hope the Strand Palace Hotel doesn't mind me sharing this advert from 2012. I think they're under new management now, so it doesn't matter. But look at this. Discover our festive packages from $55 per person, including a drink reception, 3-course dinner, wine, festive decorations, and a DJ. It couldn't be drier if you tried. There's no actual information about what you're going to get. There are a couple of shit stock images that don't even look like the hotel. And this is this is a paid advert. They've paid to be in Square Meal Christmas Parties magazine, and they're thinking they can get bookings off of this. So I think we've become a little bit more sophisticated perhaps since 2012, but to stand out doesn't take that much. So play around with it and have a bit of fun. There's a reason why we're all here today. Well, obviously, we all like the team from Airship, but most people would only give us the information that's on the right-hand side. We're doing this event, this is what it's all about, we got these great speakers, they'll entertain you. But Airship takes the time to put these ridiculous pictures together that make them memorable and that make us laugh at them, laughing at themselves. And you instantly look at them and you think, that's going to be a good time. I want to go. I want to play Sam's Christmas quiz. So thinking a little bit more about how you present things and how you can be a little bit different is really good. And then just one more reminder before we get to the prompts. You've probably heard every Amazon meeting, there's always an empty chair for the customer. And I'd like you to have at your editorial meeting also an empty chair where you think about the customer. So when you're brainstorming around the holiday, around the customers, around the competitors, really put yourself in their shoes. Like, what does it feel to be them around Christmas, and how can you help them in their everyday life? So never forget about the customer. So there are lots of prompts here. I probably won't read all of them out. You're going to share the slides here with everyone, aren't you? So you can go through these together. But it's basically about having all of these fun insights that you have in your bucket, filtering them out by asking questions. So Number one, what can we reuse and recycle? Nobody's going to remember what you put out at Christmas last year. If you can base what you're doing on that and do a slight twist on it, maybe you saved yourself half the job there. What feedback have we got? Did you go back to your teams and asked about the feedback? Did you get any press coverage? What were the complaints from guests? Sometimes the best ideas can come out of what did people hate? How can we show them that we're doing it entirely different this year? Or, that we've thought about the things that might end you in situations like the one where something went wrong. What does the customer really, really want at this time of year? What's most important? How can we make their life easier at this time of year? Also think in-house, like what could I really do with selling more of? We make the rules up. We can decide what we want to be pushing to people. What details will people really remember? How can we bring all of their senses in? How can we make it interactive and shareable? There's loads and loads of these prompts here, and I'll leave you all to read those at your own leisure. But basically, get a team together, go out and do some stuff, have some fun, brainstorm, get your teams involved, and your Christmas content is going to be so much better year on year. So yeah, that's it.